Picture the coldest night you've ever faced. You know the kind that turns your breath into little clouds, freezes your fingers before you even have the chance to warm them, and makes every inch of your room feel like the inside of a snow globe. Now, imagine living in times when the only heat you had wasn't a thermostat or a cozy electric heater, but raw nature, without any electricity, no spark plugs, and definitely no way to call for extra blankets on Amazon Prime. Sounds impossible, right? Yet here come the Vikings, those fierce, helmet-donning warriors, not only surviving but thriving in some of the harshest, coldest conditions known to medieval Europe, with winter temperatures plunging below -30 degrees F. So how the heck did they keep their homes and themselves warm when their power went out, in a world where power meant simply staying alive? This might be the strangest Viking survival trick you've never heard of. They harnessed what we'd call the ancient hot water bottles, but not in a way you'd expect. Imagine using specially prepared stones heated in a fire, wrapped meticulously in animal hides soaked in water, a clever way to radiate heat slowly into their huts for hours. I know it sounds like a low-tech magic trick, but it functioned much like a 1000W electric heater does today, silently warming a small room for an entire night. But what truly blew me away was the precision with which they handled this technique. They didn't just toss stones in the fire. These heated rocks were selected for their density and heat retention properties. Think about it: granite, iron-rich basalt, or sandstone, all picked to hold the maximum thermal energy before releasing it steadily once inside their wooden, grass-roofed longhouses. Their intimate knowledge of rock types and properties outmatches many modern DIY heating hacks. Now picture the inside of a Viking longhouse. The walls were thick, often over 2 feet of layered wood and turf, acting as a medieval version of bubble wrap. This dead air space trapped warmth inside and kept biting winds from sneaking in between the logs. What's brilliant here is how the Vikings understood insulation without calling it R-value or thermal conductance. Their turf roofs, packed with earth and moss, provided a strikingly efficient barrier. Studies have shown that these roofs could maintain indoor temperatures roughly 10-15 degrees F warmer than the outside ambient, which, when you're battling sub-zero numbers, means the difference between frostbite and comfort. It's like nature's version of Gore-Tex, a fabric that's breathable yet amazingly warm. But for the Vikings, it was all about layering natural materials in a way that no modern house without a heating system could compete with. But raw insulation alone wasn't enough. The biggest challenge was keeping the human body warm, especially when sleeping on frozen ground. So here's one of their cunning heat hacks. Vikings slept elevated on platforms well off the floor, which sounds counterintuitive because warm air rises, right? But here's where it gets fascinating. These sleeping platforms were made from woven twigs and animal skins, combined with thick wool rugs, creating the medieval version of a modern memory foam mattress with heating pads underneath. By sleeping several feet above the frozen dirt floor, they avoided the crippling cold seeping upwards while enjoying better air circulation. The warmth from their body, retained by animal furs and skins, was trapped beneath them in this cozy microenvironment. Think about it as the equivalent of an insulated sleeping bag and camping pad combined, engineered not by synthetic materials, but by extensively tested natural ones. Now, you might be thinking, sure, that keeps you warm while you're sleeping, but what about when you're just sitting around the house or out in the fields? Vikings had a neat hack for that too. They developed a unique footwear system involving multiple layers of wool and leather that functioned like high-tech thermal socks. Adding to this, they stuffed their boots and mittens with dried grasses and sometimes even moss. These materials were incredible insulators, capable of trapping air and moisture away from the skin, critical for preventing frostbite. Studies estimate that their layered footwear could keep feet up to 20 degrees F warmer compared to leather boots without insulation. Practically a walking heater. This is very much like wearing modern insulated winter boots, equipped with moisture-wicking liners designed for Arctic explorers. In fact, explorers still use dried sphagnum moss in some boot insoles precisely because of its natural thermal properties and moisture management. Proving this Viking hack was centuries ahead of its time. And it didn't stop there. When the cold would become unbearable, warriors and villagers alike made use of a kind of portable personal furnace, An ingenious concept that sounds like a medieval hand warmer but was so much more than that. They devised small, sealed containers made from clay or metal, filled with smoldering embers or heated stones, wrapped in cloth and placed near their bodies. This was perfect for hunters, travelers, or even children who needed a portable heat source. Imagine carrying around a tiny version of a modern chemical hand warmer that could keep you cozy for hours. These containers required careful handling. Too many embers and you'd risk burns. Too little heat, and the warmth wouldn't last through the freezing night. But Vikings mastered the art of balancing fire and insulation in these little devices, turning their hands and feet into warmth beacons on the coldest days. Now, one of the most mind-blowing facts is how Vikings regulated their diets to help with heat retention. We often think heat is about external sources, but Vikings knew that what they ate mattered enormously for resisting cold. Their meals were incredibly high in fat, sometimes 70–75%, composed of animal fats from seal blubber, butter, and oily fish like herring and salmon. These high-fat diets generated more internal heat during digestion, a phenomenon scientists call the thermic effect of food. Think of it as the body turning food into a little internal heater. Compare that to modern survival rations designed with high fat and protein content, aimed at maximizing energy output and warmth during extreme conditions. Their culinary choices were deliberate, maximizing every calories contribution to body heat, something even our modern-day nutritionists admire for its efficiency and instinctive wisdom. But here's a twist. All these warming tactics, rocks, insulation, diet, portable heat sources, would have been less effective if not for the Vikings' mastery of fire management within their longhouses. Picture a room with a single central hearth, no chimney, often with smoke filling the entire living space. Sounds uncomfortable. Surprisingly, it was strategic. The smoke rising not only helped retain heat, but also created a natural seal by coating the wooden beams with a layer of tar-like resin called creosote. This layer acted as an extra insulator, sealing cracks and preventing cold air leaks, similar to how weather stripping works in our modern homes. Plus, the smoke deterred insects and preserved hides hanging from the rafters. It's a clever example of multitasking household maintenance, where smoke wasn't just a byproduct, but an essential part of heating and preserving their environment. Just when you think the Vikings were only fire and stone, consider their use of animal furs. Not just any furs, but specially treated pelts that functioned far better than basic blankets. Vikings soaked animal skins in animal fats and oils, making them water-resistant and windproof. This was crucial in the wet, windy Nordic winters. Think of this treatment as an early form of waterproofing, much like modern Gore-Tex or wax jackets. The difference? These pelts were breathable, releasing moisture from sweat while blocking icy drafts. This balance kept the wearer warm without turning them into a soggy mess, a challenge even the best outdoor gear faces today. Imagine walking in a swampy tundra, damp and brutally cold, then being wrapped in this natural insulation that defies the elements like a Viking superhero cape. And finally, imagine the social heat Vikings generated. Beyond individual hacks, communal living played a sweeping role in winter survival. Vikings slept huddled together in their longhouses, sharing warmth just by body contact, an age-old method of heat conservation seen all across the animal kingdom, from penguins to pack hunters. This group warmth could add as much as 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit to ambient temperature, similar to the concept behind shared tents used by modern expedition teams in Antarctica. But it wasn't just about heat. It was about emotional connection, survival strategy, and tribal unity, reinforcing bonds that made every cold night a bit warmer not just physically, but spiritually. So, we've unraveled some astonishing Viking heat hacks, from ancient hot water stones mimicking electric heaters, through insulation strategies better than bubble wrap, to portable ember containers and high-fat diets that acted like internal furnaces. But wait, just as you're ready to assume these are all the secrets, there's an even wilder innovation Viking survivors used, so crafty and bizarre it almost sounds like folklore. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next. But here's the curveball. The Vikings' most bizarre heat hack involved an unlikely ally, their own breath. Yes, the very air they exhaled. It might sound like a scene from a Norse mythology play, But Vikings actually leveraged the warmth and moisture in their breath to create microclimates of heat within their longhouses. Think about it this way. The average human exhales air that's about 90 degrees F and saturated with moisture. Inside a tightly sealed, smoke-darkened longhouse, where doors and cracks were covered with animal hides and thick wool curtains, this warm breath condensed on insulated surfaces, creating layers of humidity that trapped heat rather than letting it escape. It's the same principle behind a modern greenhouse effect, breathing warmth into a cold room to build an invisible thermal blanket. This practice was so effective that sagas even mention winter meetings, where the collective breath of dozens of people, combined with the heat from embers and animals, kept the air soft like spring. In other words, Vikings were running their own prehistoric climate control systems, an idea that modern passive heating architects study and try to replicate with energy-efficient buildings. But as strange as it is to think about, it shows a profound understanding of every possible resource, even invisible ones, that contribute to warmth. And speaking of animals, let's not forget the role of live beasts in the Viking heating equation. It wasn't just for food or trade. The animals themselves acted as heat reservoirs. Imagine dark, woolly sheep or sturdy cattle packed tightly inside a separate stall adjacent to the longhouse, or even within designated areas inside, acting as living radiators. These animals produce body heat ranging from 100 degrees F to 102 degrees F, which, in cramped quarters, helped raise the temperature inside the dwelling. This was an eco-friendly biomass heater. Plus, their mere presence slowed drafts, acted as noise buffers, and even helped dry wet clothing. Modern tiny homes and some eco-builders use similar techniques, incorporating animals or thermal mass creatures to reduce heating costs or reliance on electricity. Yet for Vikings, this was lifeblood, steady, renewable heat from living bodies they nurtured daily. It's a reminder that true warmth isn't just about flames. Sometimes it's about the breathing, moving, furry bodies nestled close. But all these heat sources, stones, animals, breath, would have been useless if Vikings didn't solve the problem of safely managing indoor air quality. That's where the surprisingly sophisticated ventilation design of their longhouses comes in. Unlike open-fire huts of other cultures which filled with choking smoke, Vikings constructed smoke holes and adjustable wooden slats near the roof ridge to channel smoke upwards and out, creating a gentle draft that pulled in relatively fresh air from low door gaps or windows covered in translucent animal hide. This subtle airflow ensured their homes never reached oxygen-starving levels, enabling the hearths to burn steadily and reduce harsh smoke buildup, which in turn improved heat emission efficiency. It's kind of like the modern balance between sealing a home to trap heat but installing vents to avoid stuffiness. Except they did it with no fancy tools, just centuries of trial and error and close observation. Today, energy-efficient buildings rely heavily on controlled ventilation to optimize heating and safety, showing once again that Vikings owned a heating system more complex than a simple fire pit. But even with warm air, insulation, and group body heat, dry heat was a problem. Especially since cold, damp skin can quickly turn cozy warmth into chilling discomfort. This problem led Vikings to develop an ingenious way to prevent heat loss through evaporation and sweat, a critical factor in cold environments. They used animal hairs and feathers, not just for stuffing beds and cushions, but layered beneath their clothing to create an effective moisture barrier. These natural fibers trap tiny pockets of air while wicking away sweat, maintaining a dry layer close to the skin. Scientists today study fibers like wool and down for thermal regulation properties. They absorb about 30% of their weight in moisture without feeling wet, preventing rapid heat loss. Vikings didn't have the test tubes or microscopes, but they clearly knew which skins kept them dry by feel and experience, selecting pelts from mountain goats or certain birds whose insulation properties rival modern synthetic base layers. It's the difference between shivering in soggy clothes and surviving the harshest blizzards with steady warmth. And what about water? When temperatures plunge, water becomes impossible to store inside without freezing solid, yet hydration is vital for heat regulation. Vikings tackled this by consuming hot broth and stews made from bone marrow and fatty meat throughout their day, often heated over small portable fires or even glowing embers inside clay vessels. These vessels were specially crafted to retain heat, similar to ceramic thermal mugs we use today, keeping liquids warm for hours. Drinking warm fluids prevented their core temperature from dropping even during outdoor expeditions and cold nights, maximizing internal heat without exhausting energy in digestion. Scientific studies now confirm that ingesting liquids at around 104 degrees F optimizes thermal comfort with minimal metabolic strain, a practice the Vikings practiced intuitively thousands of years before modern physiology understood it. But here's the game changer. Vikings innovated with an early form of radiant floor heating. Yes, you heard that right, radiant floors long before modern tech. Archaeologists have discovered evidence that some Viking homes were built atop layers of heated stones or ashes beneath floorboards. These were insulated by layers of turf and topped with wooden planks to distribute warmth evenly. The fire's heat, trapped in these layers, radiated upwards slowly through the floor, keeping feet and legs warm even when the air was bitterly cold. Picture waking up in a sub-zero room but with a footbath effect heat coming from beneath, much like floor heating systems in contemporary Scandinavian homes today. The difference: this was entirely natural, passive heat stored and released through mineral and organic layers, no power required. It's a testament to Viking cleverness. They didn't just survive the cold, they engineered their environment to turn cold into comfort. And lastly, consider the power of ritual and mental resilience in Viking warmth strategies. The act of gathering around the hearth wasn't just practical. It was a nightly ceremony that solidified mental toughness and community spirit, factors crucial in harsh climates. Storytelling, communal singing, and shared dances released adrenaline and stimulated body warmth, similar to how modern therapy uses mindfulness and group activities to modulate the nervous system's response to cold stress. Psychological warmth became as real as the physical kind. Viking sagas frequently describe heroes triumphing not only by brute strength, but by the power of unity and mental focus in the coldest battles against winter's grip. This mind-body connection reinforced survival, making heat generation as much a cultural practice as a physical one. So when you look at these heat hacks, ancient hot stones, organic insulation layers, strategic animal cohabitation, clever ventilation, moisture-wicking pelts, thermal food and drink choices, radiant floors, and even the warmth of shared breath and spirit, it's clear Vikings created an integrated thermal survival system centuries ahead of their time. Their heat wasn't just about the elements exterior to the body, but a holistic synergy of nature, community, and technology entwined into daily life. Every choice the Vikings made came from a fierce will to protect their families, their legacy, and their future. They crafted warmth in the cold not by fighting nature, but by bending it subtly to their will, learning exactly how stones, animals, air, food, and human connection combine to preserve life in an unforgiving world.